Have you ever noticed how even a tiny toddler who barely knows how to speak inherently understands when something is unfair? You give one kid 2 cookies and the other kid 1, and the reaction is instant. It is almost as if the concept of fairness is hardwired into our DNA. Today, we are diving deep into that exact instinct, but through a very specific and fascinating lens. We are going to explore the concept of justice in Islam, and we are doing it in simple terms, stripping away the heavy academic jargon to uncover what this ancient framework actually means for our modern everyday lives. Because when you look closely, it is not just about courtrooms or legal punishments, it is about a much bigger universal balance. So to start us off, when we use the word justice in this context, what are we really talking about? Is it just about punishing the bad guys?
That cookie example is the perfect place to start because it highlights how we usually view justice as a reaction to a wrong. But in the Islamic framework, justice is actually proactive. The Arabic word most commonly used for justice is adl, and the simplest, most profound definition of adl is putting everything in its rightful place. Think about that for a second. It is not just about crime and punishment. It means that when things are where they belong, whether it is wealth, power, relationships, or even your own emotions, there is justice. Injustice, then, is simply putting something where it does not belong. If you take a beautiful, expensive shoe and put it on your head, that is technically an injustice, because the shoe is out of its proper place. It sounds like a simple metaphor, but when you apply it to society, it completely changes how you view the world.
Putting things in their rightful place. That is a really striking way to frame it. It shifts the focus from who gets punished to how do we maintain the natural harmony of things. But that immediately brings up a massive debate we see in society today. The difference between equality and equity. People often confuse the two. If justice is putting things in their rightful place, does that mean everyone gets the exact same treatment, the exact same slice of the pie, regardless of their circumstances? Because giving everyone the exact same thing sometimes feels incredibly unfair.
Exactly. And that is where the concept becomes incredibly sophisticated. Treating everyone exactly the same is equality, but it is not always justice. Let us go back to the food analogy. If you have a 2-year-old toddler and a 16-year-old athlete, and you give them both the exact same portion of food, you have achieved absolute equality. But have you achieved justice? No. The toddler will be sick, and the teenager will be starving. Justice, edel, dictates that you give each person what they specifically need to thrive. That is equity. Islam approaches societal roles, economics, and human rights through this lens of equity. It recognizes that human beings have different capacities, different needs, and different responsibilities. The goal is not to flatten everyone into identical copies of each other, but to ensure that the overarching balance of society is maintained. Everyone gets what is rightfully theirs, based on their unique position and needs.
That makes perfect sense, but it also sounds incredibly difficult to execute in real life. That human beings are naturally biased. We favor our friends, we favor our families, and we definitely favor ourselves. It is easy to talk about balance and equity when you are an outside observer, but what happens when you are personally involved? How does this framework deal with the overwhelming human instinct of self-preservation? Because if I make a mistake, my first instinct is usually to cover it up, not to eagerly restore the cosmic balance by admitting I was wrong.
That is probably the most challenging and radical aspect of this entire philosophy. There is a core principle in Islam that commands people to stand firmly for justice, even if it is against themselves, their parents, or their closest relatives. It does not matter if the person you are dealing with is rich or poor. The standard of justice remains absolute. Imagine the psychological weight of that. You are in a minor car accident in an empty parking lot. No cameras, no witnesses. The instinct is to drive away. But this principle says, no, you must testify against yourself. You must leave a note. You must take the loss. Why? Because your personal loss is secondary to the integrity of the community's balance. If everyone only stood up for justice when it was convenient or profitable, society would instantly collapse into corruption. True justice only exists when it costs you something. When you have to look your own mother or your own best friend or your own reflection in the eye and say, you are in the wrong,
True justice only exists when it costs you something. That gives me chills, honestly. It is such a high bar. We see so many whistleblowers in the corporate world or in government who ruin their own lives to expose the truth, and we treat them as rare, extraordinary heroes. But what you are saying is that within this framework, being a whistleblower against your own interests is not supposed to be the exception. It is supposed to be the baseline expectation of a moral person. That takes a tremendous amount of internal discipline. It makes me wonder, though, about the broader systems. We have talked about personal responsibility, but what about the massive systemic inequalities? We live in a world where a tiny fraction of people hold more wealth than the bottom half of the global population combined. How does this concept of putting things in their rightful place address extreme poverty and wealth hoarding?
That is where we move from personal justice to economic justice. And the Islamic approach here is fascinatingly pragmatic. Wealth is viewed as a resource that belongs ultimately to the Creator, and humans are simply temporary trustees. The core economic rule is that wealth must circulate. It cannot just be passed back and forth among the rich. To ensure this, there is the system of zakat, which is often translated as charity, but that is actually a poor translation. Charity implies a voluntary favor. You feel generous, so you give. Zakat, on the other hand, is an obligatory right. It literally means purification. The idea is that if you have wealth over a certain threshold, a specific percentage of it, usually 2.5%, does not belong to you. It belongs to the poor. If you keep it, you are holding stolen property. Think of wealth like a river. If a few people build dams and hoard all the water, the valley below dries up and dies. Justice is breaking those dams just enough to ensure the water flows to every corner of the valley. You can still have a nice reservoir, but you cannot stop the flow.
I love that river metaphor. It completely flips the psychology of giving. If I think I am doing the poor a favor, I might feel arrogant. I might expect gratitude, but if I realize I am just returning what was already theirs, it humbles me. It is not a gift, it is a debt being paid. But let us play devil's advocate for a moment. Breaking the dams and ensuring the water flow sounds beautiful in theory, yet human history is basically a long record of people building bigger and stronger dams. People are greedy, systems become corrupt. Despite the best intentions, complete justice is never actually achieved on Earth. The bad guys often win, the good guys often suffer. If this system is so focused on perfect balance, how does it handle the undeniable reality that the world is profoundly unfair? Does it just breed cynicism?
That is the ultimate philosophical question, is it not? If you believe that this physical world is all there is, then yes, the sheer volume of unpunished cruelty and unrewarded goodness can absolutely drive you to despair and cynicism. But the Islamic concept of justice operates on a two-tiered timeline. There is human justice, which we are obligated to fight for every single day. We have to build the courts, feed the poor, speak the truth, and try to fix the balance. But there is also the profound recognition that human justice is inherently flawed and incomplete. The ultimate balance is only achieved through divine justice, which happens after this life. The belief is that not a single atom's weight of good or an atom's weight of evil will go unaccounted for. Every unrecorded tear, every secret theft, every silent act of kindness is weighed on a perfect cosmic scale.
That creates a really interesting psychological safety net. It means you do not have to carry the weight of the entire universe on your shoulders. You fight for justice as hard as you can, but when you inevitably fail to fix everything, you do not break down. You trust that the final accounting is not in your hands. It must be incredibly liberating. It prevents the burnout that so many activists and highly empathetic people feel today. They look at the news, they see the wars, the corruption, the poverty, and they just shut down because it is too much. But this two-tiered system says, do your part, clean up your own corner of the room, and trust that the rest of the house will eventually be clean.
Precisely. It bridges the gap between relentless action and inner peace. You do not become passive. You do not say, well, it will all be sorted out in the end, so I will not do anything. That is considered a failure of your duty. You are required to be the agent of justice in your own life. If you see an injustice, you are supposed to change it with your hands. If you cannot do that, you speak out against it. If you cannot even do that, you must at least hate it in your heart. You are constantly engaged, but the knowledge of ultimate justice protects you from nihilism. It gives meaning to the suffering of the oppressed who never saw justice in their lifetimes. Their suffering was not a meaningless glitch in a cold universe. It is a temporary imbalance that will be spectacularly corrected. It gives people the ultimate dignity.
That idea of hating injustice in your heart as the bare minimum, that is powerful. It means apathy is the real enemy. You can be powerless, but you can never be indifferent. It keeps the internal compass magnetized to the right direction. Let us bring this back to the everyday level, to the people listening right now. We are not all judges, we are not all wealthy philanthropists, and we might not be in a position to whistleblow on a massive corporate scandal. How does a regular person going about their daily routine practice this profound level of adl, this putting of things in their rightful place?
It starts in the most mundane, invisible moments of your day. It is how you speak to a waiter or a customer service representative. Are you giving them the respect that is rightfully theirs? It is in how you manage your time. Are you giving your family their rightful time? Or is your job stealing it? It is even in how you treat your own body. Are you giving your body the rest and nourishment it has a right to? Or are you abusing it with stress and bad habits? Remember, justice against yourself is a core tenet. You can be unjust to your own soul. So practicing adl means constantly assessing your environment and your choices. It is asking yourself, is this situation balanced? Am I taking more than I am giving? Am I withholding a kind word, a necessary apology, or a helping hand that belongs to someone else? It transforms you from a passive consumer of life into an active balancer of your own micro-universe.
An active balancer of your own micro-universe, that is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. It takes this massive, intimidating word, justice, and shrinks it down to the size of a conversation, a meal, or a quiet decision made in an empty room. It shows that the foundation of a fair society isn't built in the Supreme Courts or the halls of Parliament. It is built in the millions of tiny, everyday interactions between ordinary people. If we all focused on just putting the small things in our own lives into their rightful places, the ripple effect would be unimaginable.
And that is the ultimate beauty of this framework. It does not demand that you save the entire world. It simply demands that you do not corrupt your corner of it. It asks you to be a scale that always measures fairly, even when no one is looking. And when you inevitably tip the wrong way, because human beings are flawed, the system allows for repentance and correction. You just recalibrate and try again. It is a lifelong practice of striving for equilibrium, knowing that the effort itself is what matters most.
This has been an incredibly eye-opening conversation. We have traveled from toddlers arguing over cookies to the profound idea of testifying against ourselves, to the flow of global wealth, and finally down to how we treat our own bodies. It really shifts the paradigm. Justice is not just a sword that strikes down the guilty, it is the foundation that holds the entire house up. If you take away anything from our discussion today, let it be this. The next time you feel that flash of anger because something is unfair, do not just look at what was taken. Look at what is out of place and ask yourself, what small thing can I do today to restore the balance? Think about that as you go about your week. Until next time, keep questioning, keep balancing, and keep seeking the truth.